Hey everyone, and welcome to Project Premium Harvest. My name is Matt. In today's video, we're going to be going over if ULTY's prospectus change actually made a difference, right? And the results are quite shocking. We're going to look at two different data points. We're going to look at as if you're going to retire off of the fund. And the second data point is just the raw. This is what the NAV erosion is. This is what the distribution is. And then I created a monthly compounding calculator to look at the result. So let's get started. So if you guys don't know what ULTY is, what I'm talking about, that's the Yieldmax Ultra Options Income Strategy ETF, right? If you want to learn about it, I'm not going to bore you to death and read the description, but this is the fund we're going to be investigating. All right, guys. So if you look at this screen here, let me zoom in a bit. As you can see, the ULTY prospectus changed on October 15th. However, I'm just going to come up with the data from October 1st. So let's go to the Robinhood brokerage and then grab some data, and then let's go to the spreadsheets. Okay, so as we can see from the Robinhood brokerage for ULTY, the current share price is $8.76, right? But if we look at the October 1st time period, the share price was at $10.29. So basically what I plan on doing is I'm going to grab this 1029 and then I'm going to subtract the 876 to come up with the NAV erosion over this 4-month period. Cool. Now let's look at the spreadsheet. All right, so I'm going to remove myself from the screen, but basically what I did here, guys, is I went through the last 4 distribution payments for ULTY, combined them all up so that I can get this 2.9387 of total premium. And then what I did is I took those 4 payments and then divided it by the 4 to get about 0.73468 as the distribution per payment. And then if we make an estimate over a 13 payment year, because I looked at ULTY and they're going to have 13 payments in 2025. So that total estimated premium for ULTY is going to be about $9.55. And if you look at that as a distribution rate compared to that $10.29, it's going to be 92.81%. All right, guys, so let's look at the negative parts of ULTY. I wasn't really a big fan of it when this fund came out. The NAV erosion was too significant for me to invest to it. So let's take a look if that is still the case after the prospectus change. So over the last 4 months, the share price has deteriorated from $10.29 to $8.76. Basically, that's a $1.53 loss over 4 months. And if you look at that as a percentage, that's 14.86% in 4 months. So the one thing about ULTY is the tax advantage is relatively good. However, with the capital depreciation, negate the benefit of the tax advantage because you're losing so much money. But let's take a look. So what this means is for the return of capital, you only have to pay taxes on 30.29% of the distribution at ordinary income levels. So that's not bad. And then once you put that into the tax bracket, the taxes are too high. However, like I said, because of this fund and it's the deterioration of your capital, that's not necessarily a good thing. You want to pay almost 0 taxes, and the fact you have to pay taxes on a losing investment, not necessarily ideal. So let's take a look what the numbers would look like over a year period. So over a year period, if we just take this $1.53 and multiply it by 3 to get the 12 months, because 4 times 3 equals 12, the share price is going to deteriorate about $4.59. And if you look at that over a percentage, that's negative 44.6% per year with this new prospectus. The old prospectus over a year period was negative 57%. So you're only really improving, 13%. So it's definitely an improvement, but is that what we're looking for here? And the distributions appear to be getting lower and lower as the months are progressing or the payments are progressing. So let's continue moving forward. So as I said earlier, we're going to look at 2 different data points. One is the retirement one and one is just the raw data. So those 2 different data points I was talking about, this chart exemplifies the retirement part. So over the 4 payments, right, if you subtract the NAV erosion to the premium paid out, you're actually still net $1.04 per share. And if you look at that over a yield, basically every month you're still up 35 cents a share. And if we look at that distribution as a rate, it's 29.99%. And then the estimate over a year period is you're going to be net $3.08 a share. So not necessarily anything too significant to write home about. So let's take a look at the retirement chart. Like I said, this chart is more so that if we plan on retiring off of the fund, right, we can talk about the tax advantage accounts you can place this into is like the like Roth IRA. But for me personally, I'm already doing all the right things, maxing out my Roth IRA and maxing out my 401k. So I ideally want to keep these high income ETFs in my brokerage because I like the flexibility of just having the money on hand versus potentially getting penalized if I need to pull it out because of market conditions and whatnot. All right, so let's look at this chart, guys. So let's go over the main points. So we're looking at ULTY. We bought in at $10.29. We're using the net premium yield, so it's about 29.99%. What the net monthly premium looks like is about 35 cents a share, and over a year period, that's $3.09. And as we mentioned about the return of capital considerations, we only have to pay taxes on 30.29% of the distribution at ordinary income level. So I'll discuss that in a moment here. But let's start diving into the numbers, guys. So for a $1,000 investment, you're going to have about 97 shares of ULTY, and that monthly income is going to be $34.21. Not necessarily too great, but everyone starts somewhere, right? And so the yearly income is going to be $299.92. The tax rate, because we only have to pay taxes on about 30% of the distribution. 30% of the distribution is $90.85, and a 10% tax rate on that $90 is $9.08. That's kind of how the taxes work on these high income ETFs. So now let's go over to the $10,000 investment. So you're going to have about 971 shares once you finally make your purchase. That monthly income is going to be $342, and that yearly income is going to be $2,999.18. Because of the return of capital considerations, we only have to pay taxes on $908.45 with a 10% tax rate because this 908 falls in line into the $0 to $11,000 marker. We only have to pay in the 10% bracket here, so that's $90.85. All right, guys, moving on to that $25,000 investment. With that $25,000 investment, you're going to own 2,429 shares of ULTY. That's a monthly income of $855.20. Over a year period, that's $7,497 in premium. But because of return of capital considerations, you're only going to have to pay taxes on $2,271.13. Because that $2,000 fits in that 10% tax bracket, we're only paying 10%, so that's $227.11. Right? If you take the taxes paid against the distribution, that's only a 3.124% tax rate. Cool. Moving on to the $50,000 investment, right? So for a $50,000 investment, you're going to own 4,859 shares. That is a monthly income of $1,710.40. Over a year period, that's $14,995.92. With return of capital considerations, we only have to pay taxes on $4,542.26. And that is at the 10% tax rate because that 4,000 fits into that $0 to $11,000 mark. So you only have to pay about $454.23. After taxes, you're still net $14,541, and that's a 3.124% tax rate. Now for the $100,000 investment, we're getting to the good stuff, the spicy, the bigger numbers. Right, so with a $100,000 investment of ULTY, you're going to own 9,718 shares. That monthly income is going to be $3,420.80. Over a year period, that's $29,991.84. Because of the return of capital considerations, we only have to pay taxes on 30% of that distribution. So that's $9,084.53. $9,000 still fits in that $0 to $11,000 tax bracket. So we only have to pay $908.45 in taxes. Once you subtract 908 from the 29,991, you're still net positive $29,083.38. And that tax rate is still 3.124%. All right. Now, lastly, the big number, the cool one, the $1 million investment into ULTY. So with a $1 million investment into ULTY, you're going to have 97,182 shares. That monthly income is going to be about $34,207.97. And that yearly income is going to be $299,918.37. Because of return of capital considerations, this $90,000 goes into 3 different tax brackets. And so end of the day, we're going to be paying about $15,293.46, and you're still net $284,624.91. And if you look at that as an actual tax rate for what you had to pay, that's 5.373%. So pretty cool, right? Yeah. And so going back to the net, the reason why I discuss subtracting the NAV erosion to the premium is because if you want to retire on it, say you invest like $25,000 or $100,000, for you to maintain that NAV neutral, you're going to have to put that money back into the fund so you don't lose it, right? You either put that money off to the side or you reinvest it so you can continue making more premium. But end of the day, you still have to do something with that money. Ideally, if you're not retired yet, you can continue reinvesting, no problem. However, if you're retired, the expectation is that you want to live off of this and you don't want your initial investment to go down, because guess what? These funds are relatively new. We don't actually know how they're going to perform over time. What I'm doing here is this is a best guess. But end of the day, no one knows if these funds will be around 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, right? So these are precautions we have to take. So if a fund is, not doing great, you probably should be pulling some of the money from that premium to the side to make sure you don't lose your initial investment. And if you're losing money in your investment, we should probably reevaluate where the money is going. But looking at this net chart, the numbers don't look terribly bad. You're still up, that 35 cents per share. So let's take a look at what this numbers would look like in a compound calculator that I created. All right, guys, here's my ULTY compound calculator for the data we just came up with, right? Just to kind of go over what we discussed. So we'll just use an initial principal of about $20,000. The share price, as we mentioned, is $10.29 a share. When you take $20,000 and divide that into 1029, you're going to own about 1,943.63 shares. Distribution we talked about in the previous spreadsheet. And then the NAV erosion is negative 44.60%. And then for the year of 2025, there's going to be 13 distribution payments for ULTY. So let's calculate those numbers. So let's take a look at what the numbers are going to look like after 1 year. So after a year of investing into ULTY, theoretically, your investment should increase to about $37,074.93. And you should be making a monthly premium of about $4,000, right? So that's definitely a significant increase from $1,427 to about $4,000. All right, so that's not bad. Let's take a look at the numbers as if we were going to invest it for 5 years. Let's go. What is that? 5. There it is. Man, math is hard. Man, these compound calculators always seem to be a little slightly off. So basically, if you invest in a ULTY after, 5 years, you should have about $947 million. Yeah, because if you look at the data, we start off with that share price of about $10.29. And each month, because of the NAV erosion, we're lowering the share price. All right, the share price is going down slightly, but then the premiums are going up because we're buying more shares at a discount. And on top of that, your total value is going up. So after that 1 year period, yeah, your account's going to be at $37,000. But the crazy thing is I don't understand. I don't think this is how it's going to actually pay out. But if you invest into this fund after like 5 years, so let's scroll down to that 5-year marker. And do this, right? So technically, in 5 years, the share price of ULTY is going to be $1.26, right? But you're going to own a metric ton of shares. So you're basically going to own like 74 million shares, because that's what this gray marker is. That's shares, right? And theoretically, if we scroll over to the right here, your monthly distribution payment is going to be about $549 million. And then your actual account value is going to be $1 billion. I don't think that's going to happen, because if ULTY does a stock split or reverse split, these numbers are going to change. But the year 1 numbers, they look relatively accurate. But then the year 5, they just seem a little bit ludicrous, right? So let's kind of keep scrolling down. See what a 10-year period looks like. So 2035. So for 2035, you're basically gonna own the entire US GDP. So let's look at the numbers with the actual if you were to retire on, because this seems a little too good to be true. Okay, so I changed the numbers to the net distribution as if we're going to retire. So we're going to reinvest that money or pull it out and set it off to the side. So the numbers look a little bit more realistic than the fund depreciating negative 44% and continuing to go down. So I did everything kind of pretty much stayed the same, except the net distribution was reduced from $9.55 to about $3. I put the NAV erosion appreciation as 0 because we already pulled out the NAV erosion from the distribution, and the monthly payments are still going to be 13 for 2025. So let's take a look. So after a year period of investing into ULTY, let's take a look. Right, the monthly premium is going to increase about $150. So your monthly premium is going to be about $606, and your account value is going to be about $26,000. Let's look at what it would look like over a 5-year period. Let's go to 2030, right? So in about 5-year period, that distribution payment is going to be about $1,813.12. And then your actual account value is going to be about $78,590. So definitely increasing, but not as crazy as the other numbers we're looking at. So let's look at about a 10-year period. What is those numbers going to look like? Boom, boom. So over a 10-year period, if you maintain your investments in ULTY and nothing changes with Prospectus, reverse stock splits, your monthly premium is going to be about $7,124.67, and your account value is going to be about $308,000. Not a bad investment if you put only about $20,000, if you were to ask me. However, personally for me, after looking at all these numbers, I think there's better investments out there that are more realistic. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. There's a couple of considerations you can take. Sure, you can throw these into retirement tax advantage accounts. However, for me, with the Prospectus, and it's still deteriorating about 44.6%, and the distributions are slowly decreasing, I don't know if this is a good investment. I personally would not invest into it. If you are invested in it, I'm not saying you should get out, but obviously just know the risk involved. Yeah, guys, that wraps up the video. A lot of crazy numbers, right, when it comes to the negative share price, and then the distribution still staying high. I personally would invest into this fund because there are a lot of unknowns. I think owning the entire US GDP with the trillions of dollars is too good to be true, and I don't think it's actually going to happen. The more realistic numbers look like the retirement numbers. But yeah, guys, that wraps up the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section if you haven't already. And if you have stayed this far, I'm going to continue making these types of videos and just normal portfolio updates. Please don't hesitate to subscribe, because there's going to be more content like this coming down the pipe. I'm going to do this for ymax, ymag, and I also want to start tapping into kurv funds, because I think kurv funds are a lot more effective than whatever Yieldmax is offering. Plus, I also still have a few more wrap-up videos for like Cony, nvdy. Might even throw an schd in there, you know. But yeah, guys, love you. Talk to you later. Matt out.